Hello, good morning, and welcome to Expert Perspective with Anita Michael. So, last week we discussed something very interesting. We talked about tech, how to get started in tech and digital skills with minimal investment, and it was very productive with the very indomitable, delectable is in Udo. Today, we'll talk about something aside from tech because at NEV, we are all for education, and that is supposed to be holistic. So apart from tech today, we'll talk about something that is not Japa or tech inclined. It still has some tech in it anyway, but it's more of business. So with me on the show today, I have somebody very interesting, and he is going to be lecturing us about solar energy business. And this is a very interesting one for us, especially in the part of the world that I am in, Nigeria. I mean, power is much of a challenge to us, and a lot of people have resorted to finding an alternative that is less inconveniencing. I have experienced this firsthand. In our office, we are powered by solar energy. In my home, we use solar energy. So this is very interesting for me, and I believe it would be very interesting for you as well. So welcome with me, Mr. Okeke, as he takes us on solar energy business. Welcome, Mr. Okeke. It's a pleasure to have you, and the floor is yours for the next let's say 30 minutes. Let's hear what you have to share with us. I can't wait to learn from you. Welcome, sir.
All right. Thank you, Anita. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You're audible.
Okay. So, like I said, my name is Mada Abuchi. I just want to share with you how I started my solar business. Okay. I just want to give you a little bit of background. I'm a mechanical engineer. Okay, and I have over 20 years experience working. I work in the manufacturing, but I spend most of my time working in oil and gas industry. I have worked with a service company. I've also worked with the government. I mean, the government body regulating the industry. Okay, so throughout the span of my career, I worked as a mechanical engineer, instrumentation engineer, and I did a little bit of IT support, like for 3 years. So let me now go over to what actually led me to start the business. Okay, I know when you are working, you usually will have this pressure. There's always this fear that if you lose your job, what are you going to do? So that fear has always been there. Now, faced with the challenge that everybody is facing in Nigeria, this power challenge, I picked interest in solar. I wanted to have my own system. I used to have 3 generators, 1 diesel gen of 10 kVA and 2 petrol gen. And I was doing forest trading. I needed to be connected 24 hours and all that, you know. So it was a mess. I needed something stable. I needed something I can automate. I needed something I can trust. I needed something that I know that even if I'm not in the house, because most times I set up my system to trade, I don't stay there because the way my system works, even if anything happens, it will restart and all the trades will resume because I automate my trade. So in order to deal with this challenge, I started, learning about solar and all that, and I made some investments. I think I called somebody to install it, but when the guy came to my house and I asked him 1 or 2 questions, I found out that I actually knew more than the guy. So I decided to connect it myself and ask him to come and secure the solar, on the platform when I'm done with the connection. And that is how I started. Before you know it, I started doing for my friends, and eventually I retired to continue the business. I retired last year, I'm a student now, but I'm still doing the business, even while I'm here. All right, so if you want to know more about my background, you can see my LinkedIn address there, okay? So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about the business, the general perspective of business, and we will also look at some kind of foundation, even though this presentation or the training is not really intended to be academic, but there are some little foundation you should have, basic science foundation that you should have to be able to do this business. I also will discuss how you are going to get help, because you need support all the way. We'll discuss that when we get to that point. And we also look at various forms of solar energy storage systems, all the components that you are going to be encountering as you are trying to develop a solution. We will also look at how you size your panel, how you size the inverter that will be connected to the system, and how you size the batteries. Because these are the key. If you can't get those sizes right, you cannot even talk about other components, because other components will be supporting either the battery, the solar, or the inverter. Then we also look at growth opportunities, because this training is not actually intended to make you can't do big power after this training. But after this training, you should be able to understand solar and do the business, market it, do some procurement. You can also partner with installers to get it delivered. So you do the project management stuff. But if you now want to get to serious business, you really need to learn about details of the design and also how you can automate the system so that you can achieve. That is where the demand is right now. You want to, solar is not cheap. When you have spent money delivering it, you want to squeeze out all the values that you can squeeze out of it. You want to make sure that the grid only brings in what solar cannot, just makes up the difference rather than the other way around. So what you usually have is that some people have solar, and when they are going to work, they will be, they either turn it off or leave it on. If you turn it off and it's a sunny day, good for you. If you turn it off and it's a rainy day, you come back and you meet your battery is empty. If you leave it on, the grid will not allow solar to bring in energy. So you have spent money with, you have your solar and you are still paying huge electric bills. So let's get into the details so that let's get to the business so you will understand what I'm talking about. Now, let's talk about the general principles of business. So in business, you actually sell values. You solve people's problem. No matter how you have passion, if you don't have a solution, if you are not solving problems, if you are not creating values, you are not in business. And I also want us to realize that there are risks and there are rewards. So it's all about managing risks. So you need to know the risks to get into and the ones to avoid. So let's talk about value creation and value capture. In value creation, you try to give back to the system, develop the system, and in value capture, you reap reward coming from the system. Like what I'm doing today is part of value creation, okay? Yes, I'm creating the value. I'm very confident. This is not the first time I've done this kind of thing before. I will do it over and again because I'm positioned to capture values. How do I capture value? Okay, let me even talk about how you create value. How I create value is I train installers. I go to forum. They come up with challenges, design challenges, sizing challenges. I help deal with that. In doing that, I position myself as an expert. So you find out that when they see big job that they are not able to take care of, they will call me and I will give them some compensation for that. So I have network of installers, network of business owners who actually bring business for me. And I do give them commission for that. So in delivering the solution, I will capture because, of course, there are profit to be made in the business. Now, let's look at the risk associated with business. I want you to understand that once you step into somebody's house and you tamper with the electrical installation, you have entered into a very risky situation. I remember there was a job I delivered in Shoreline Estate somewhere in Ikoyi, and one day the client called me and said the pressure pump was not working. I said, please, can you go to the kitchen, check the switches, and check the indicator on the switch. Is it showing any light? He said, it's showing light. I said, we have delivered power to the pump. Please call a plumber. He said, no. Please, you have to come now. Whatever is going to take, I will pay your transport. You have to come. This is about 7 p.m. I said, madam, call a plumber. He said, no. So anyway, eventually, of course, I said I will not be able to make it. I didn't go because I knew it was not an electrical issue. After 30 minutes, I started to call back. I called back and I asked, have you called a plumber now? He said, yes, he has sorted it out. So the point I'm trying to make is that once you step into somebody's house, you are going to carry a very big risk, and you need to be prepared for that. There was also another job I delivered in Surulere, and after 3 months, the house almost caught fire. So why we're talking about it today is because they were able to stop the fire at a very early stage, and their electrician was able to determine that it was an overloaded socket that started the fire. If that house had gone down, you'll be rest assured that I'll be invited by the police to explain what happened to the house. So you need to realize there's a huge risk delivering this, okay? Now, I also need to understand that Nigerian environment is a highly poorly regulated environment. So there will always be non-compliant conditions in the house. They bring in all manner of uncertified electricians to come and do something. So even after you have finished delivering your job, somebody might do 1 or 2 connections and backfeed energy to the system and could damage the system and all that. So you need to make sure that the systems are properly protected to deal with such. But just, to highlight that you have a lot of risk. Of course, we already know the reward, so let me not waste our time talking about the rewards. So now let's discuss foundation. What kind of foundation do you need to have before you move into this business? Like I said, you need to have basic science knowledge. So right now, I'll try to outline the basic 3 things that you need to know to enter into solar energy. Also outlines the steps you need to take to really be very grounded in doing the business. So the first thing I highlighted there is power. I just want to mention how you see that in a real day life. Okay, if you go to your house, you see appliances, they will say, this is a heavy load. What does that mean? Okay, you hear voltage, there's somebody say we have low voltage, and I know everybody has also heard of current. So when we are discussing the electrical power, it's normally discussed in terms of watts. That watt is the current, average current flowing multiplied by the voltage, average current. There are different kind of current that will flow inside an appliance. When you start an appliance, especially the ones that have compressors and motors, they are going to start with at times 3 times the current, they are running current. So when you want to determine the wattage they consume, you don't use the starting current, you use the running current, which is usually the average current that is going to flow. But there's also need at this point to highlight that all those devices will have a nameplate that will properly state what currents they deliver at different conditions, and that will help you know the wattage. So here we'll be dealing with watts. The solar panel we're talking about is also rated in watts. You hear 300 watt solar panel. Usually we write this as WP. So when you see WP, it means watt of the panel. So when it's quoted anywhere, you always write this as W with a subscript P. You also see Yeah. So when you put on an appliance, say 100 watts, and you run it for an hour, you have consumed 100 times 1 hour. 100 watts times 1 hour worth of energy is called 100 watt hour. So a watt power running for a period of time, we will move to a quantity called energy. We already know what energy is all about. Okay? So that is consumption. When you expose a panel of watt again, power, for 1 hour in a full sunlight, let's say you expose a 100-watt panel in a full sunlight for 1 hour, it's going to produce 100-watt-hour also. That means without considering any loss in the system, if you have a 100-watt load in your house running and you have a 100-watt panel under the sun, under full sunlight, the panel should be able to offset that load. I stress the word under full sunlight. The panel will not produce that same amount of energy if the sun is not full. And there's a technical definition of full sunlight. We're not going to go into that in this discussion. So I've already mentioned that when you expose either solar panel or you put on load for 1 hour, you are going to dissipate energy, and that energy is 100 watt hour. So here you see that energy is IVT, I being current, V being voltage, and T being time. Of course, IV is watt. So the things you see in bracket are units of measure, while the other ones are quantities that we're measuring. Now, but what I want to stress under this energy is that it's easy for us to know the energy when we're talking about consumption of load or production of panel. But when we get to the energy stored in a battery, people get confused because we don't talk of watt hour, in a general. Until recently, when we start talking about batteries, we usually talk about amp hour of a battery and the voltage of a battery. So the normal inverter batteries, the lead acid batteries you see on the street, are normally rated in amp hours. So generally, most of them are 12 volts, both the UPS battery and all that. So they rate them by amp hour. So I want to help us convert this to the watt hour equivalent. And that is why I stated here that amp hour times V is also equal to watt hour. Because if you look at the amp is coming from I, the hour is coming from T, and the volt is coming from V. So if you rearrange, you will see that watt hour is actually equal. Anita, please, later, I think I will change this greater than sign to equal sign so that it doesn't confuse the slide, because what I'm actually indicating here, that they are all equivalent, is not actually greater than. I will take care of it later. So now let's discuss losses. So when you connect systems together, there will always be losses. That is the normal thing with life. In the room, if you are in a room and you put on the AC, you find out that the AC, there will be some kind of losses. I mean, heat will be seeping into the house to counter that. If you also try to heat a room in cold weather, you find out that some heat will also be lost to the surrounding environment. So in electrical energy, when you're also moving energy, converting energy from one form to the other, there are usually losses. So there are many losses in the system, but I just want to highlight the loss that you encounter running through electrical cables. But before I dwell on that, I just want to mention that when you also charge batteries and discharge batteries, if you touch the body of the batteries, you feel that they are warm. So when they are warm, it means that there's a heat dissipated when you're charging the battery and discharging the battery. And these are also losses. We will not get into that in this discussion today. So now let's get to the loss on the copper cable, on the wires, either aluminum or copper. By the way, it's copper that we usually use for solar installation. We don't use aluminum. So that loss is determined by this value, I raised to the power 2 times R times T. Please, let's not think it's complex. Remember, power is IV and V is equal to IR. If I substitute IR there, it will give me that power is I squared R. So if I still multiply that power by time, I will get a heat loss. Now, but why I highlighted this particular value in this discussion is that it's important to know the role the current play in the loss. The current is squared in this particular equation. So any slight reduction in current will give you a huge reduction in the heat loss because it's a square relationship. So if you reduce the current by half, the heat will that you are going to the loss heat the loss due to heat will going to be reduced by the square of that value. This will come back to, this week we are going to discuss this again when we start talking about this, how you size your cables and all that. Now, the next thing you are going to do, apart from understanding these three concepts of power, energy, and heat loss, the next thing that you will now require to do, which will also reinforce what you have learned in the first three, is to go to YouTube and search for a playlist. A company has already made a playlist. If you type off-grid solar power system design inside YouTube, you will see a playlist of 22 videos. It has step 1 to 5. Step 1 to 5. So if you want to come into this business, you need to watch that step 1 to 5 like 5 times and be very grounded in those principles. And they will be talking about power, energy, and heat loss I have highlighted above. After getting yourself grounded, you can watch the rest of the videos anyhow you want, or when you want further explanation. Then after that, you need to download another free material on the net called Wiring Unlimited. Wiring Unlimited is, I think that book is written by Vitron Energy, a solar company in Netherlands. So when you read that Wiring Unlimited, it will explain to you how you are going to wire the panel, how you are going to wire the battery, balance the battery, and all that. Then Energy Unlimited is written by the same company. It's talking about lead-acid batteries and all the terminology and all that. And once you are through with this, you have a very solid foundation to make money doing solar business. So, and this next slide is talking about, of course, how you are going to get help. Number one, I have already talked about it. If you click the link, number one, which I'm going to do right now, it will take us to the playlist that I talked about. Oh, sorry. Hold on. No. Sorry, hold on. I'm having challenge with my link. Well, this link is supposed to take me to YouTube. I will work whatever is the issue with the link. I will deal with that later. But let's just, can you see my screen now? I'm on YouTube. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, so that link is not working. I will deal with it later. So I have searched for off-grid solar power system design. Okay, let me add design. Design, okay. So it takes us to this playlist. This playlist is, you can see step 1, load list. Can you see it? This is step 1, load list. Can you see it? Hello, Anita, can
Yes,
you
I
see it?
can.
Okay,
I
so
can.
okay, so this is step 2, battery bank sizing. Step 3 is solar array sizing. Step 4 is charge controller, selection of charge controller. Step 5 is selection of inverter. So these 5 steps, you need to do it like 5 times to be grounded, because remember, risk and reward. When you are grounded, you reduce the risk of blowing up any appliance that you have bought. Because if you blow up anything, of course, warranty will not cover it. You're already running into a loss. So for you to be grounded, you need to watch this step 5 like 5 times. Then any other video here is just trying to explain some of the things you have already learned better. So you can watch any other one. If you don't like, you can just go straight to the Wiring Unlimited. So let me also go back to Google, and I'll search for Wiring Unlimited. I search for Wiring Unlimited, and open it here. It will show us this book. Okay. You see, this book is going to tell you everything you need to know about wires and all the issues. If you get to page 19, you will see, oh, is it page? Yeah, I think page 19. You will to start talking about how you balance battery. You can read other details there, but this is usually a serious issue when you are dealing with lead acid batteries. So a lot of people, they complain, just put this battery after 6 months, it's gone and all that. So an installer must make sure that the batteries are properly wired to balance when they are being charged. Otherwise, you will overwork 1 or 2 of the batteries and they will give way. And when they fail, they will also cause the whole system to fail. Very important. So if you search for the number 3, which is Energy Unlimited, you also learn more about lead acid batteries. I don't think I will dwell on that right now. So I will look at all those lists and make sure that they are working. Now, when we are done with that, so the link number 4, so we are done with link 1, 2, 3. Link number 4 is actually the one that's been opening. It's about DC cable sizing tool. It's a free tool on the net. Okay. So over here, you can set the acceptable loss. The loss we talk about, that heat loss that we talk about, you can set the acceptable. It's usually best to leave it at 3%. You know, you are going to do a trade-off. When you are doing business, you do a trade-off between the quality or what you are trying to achieve and the economies. They has to balance. Okay. Yeah. So remember that the heat loss is a square of current. So when you size, well, we are going to get into sizing, but let me just say you can do sizing at this link at this stage. When we get into sizing, we are going to talk about that. So the next link there has to do with Vitron Professional. So Vitron has provided free training for people who want to learn about the business. So why not take advantage of that? All you need to do is to enroll. If you don't have a company that you're going to use as a company name, you can enter a company that you plan to register. The system will still accept you. So you enroll, you watch videos, get some digital certificate. You can also, if you also enroll, anytime they have webinar around their area, or if it's online, anytime they have webinar, they are going to, around the language you select, they are going to invite you to join the webinar, and that way you will grow. There's also enough community for Vitron energy equipment, which when you have issue, you can share the issue in the community and you get responses from people like us and all that. At times, Vitron officials also step in to give their final say on the matter. So that's that. Now, let me also talk about an important link. Why I'm mentioning this link I'm opening now is because Vitron energy products are very, very good. They're designed in Netherlands, at times manufactured in India, but they're very solid. They have the inverters, they have like 5-year global warranty, and they even charge controllers. So when you buy them, you are rest assured there's not going to be any issue. Even if there are issues, they will take care of that. So, but they are becoming very expensive because most company banks, that's the kind of inverter they want to use. So there's a Chinese alternative that has also tried to stabilize their system over time, and that's TBB. So here, if you are going with TBB products, you can also come here. You see that they have all sorts of documents. I'm only going to show some set of documents. Here they have all sorts of documents, the manuals for their inverters and all that. But I'm interested in general documents. English. So when you come to general documents English, you will see some information guiding you on how to do some specific things that might, because at times you buy the inverter, you have to connect the inverter to a battery not manufactured by them, or connect it to a PV inverter not manufactured by them. So this general document will deal with those issues that you may have trying to do that. So it's very, very important for support and help. So then you also have a Frohnus, a big time PV inverter manufacturer in Austria. So they also have, they are big on training and webinars. So these are the areas you get. Of course, you have growers. So when you join all these communities, you are going to get a very solid support while you are doing your business. So the next slide is for us to talk about, I'll quickly rush through all the components that you encounter in the business. Of course, I've talked about the solar panel and the inverters and batteries, but there are other components. Let's see them one, I'm going to go through them one at a time, and I'll make some comments. So the first one is you come to a panel, a solar panel. If you come to a solar panel like this, what I just want to highlight is 2 important points when you get to the data sheet. This is the data sheet of this panel. So I just want to highlight that if you look at the data sheet, it will contain the information about the dimension of the panel, what is the size and all that. And you need to take this information into consideration when you are designing your system. Otherwise, you go and order panel and you find out that the person does not have enough roof space to carry the panel. So you need to look at the dimension. You also need to look at 2 important information here for warranty issue. You can see the open circuit voltage. Can you see here, open circuit voltage is called VOC. This VOC is what will determine the charge controller that you are going to use. I will talk about this VOC when I come to charge controllers. And another one is, again, short circuit current, ISC. We also talk about it when we come to charge controller selection. So these 2, before you ever complete the design of your system, you must decide which panel you are using and use these quantities to determine the charge controller you are going to select. Because if you buy the charge controller without deciding the panel, you might either run into some issues with warranty or have to downgrade your system, where you will now bring down large amount of current. Of course, when you bring down large amount of current, the losses in the system will be very high, and you are not going to get the desired results. Sorry. Okay, so from current slide, okay. So now I have already shown you a sample of solar panel. Another important thing I want to discuss on this slide is that solar panel, there are a lot of solar panel in the market. If you go to Alaba market, there are a lot of solar panels. Some of them, if you buy them after 3 years, they are gone. Some of them will last up to 5 years. So to make sure that you are doing this business and you stay strong and people will still continue to patronize you, you need to take care in deciding which brand of panel you are going to buy. So there's a report here from PV Tech. So they normally track how most panels are doing. So let me just go to a particular chart. So this chart here, this pyramid is called, that is where you have the bankability. You can see who is on top. On top here, I have Longest Solar, followed by Trainer Solar, JA Solar, First Solar, and Jinko Solar. The third on the A is Canadian Solar. I don't know whether it's small on your screen. Can you see that?
I can see it, yeah. Yeah, I can see it, but I wish you can zoom in on your end. It's really small.
Okay, let me zoom in. Okay, let me zoom in before I go to that slide. Okay,
that's better. Thank you.
Okay, so look at, this is the pyramid I'm talking about. So you are probably not going to see any solar market in that Alaba in this thing. You're not going to see any of them. Then what you are likely going to see in Alaba, we need to discuss what we're talking about business. You are likely going to go to Alaba, you see like a Sharp panel, a panel written Sharp or LG, or even Canadian Solar. But it turns out that it's just the label. So how do you determine the original panel? The first thing you need to do is that the panel has a label at the back and it has a barcode in the front. That barcode must be inside the glass and that barcode must match the barcode on the back. Because if somebody pastes panel, you can just paste it on the back or on top, but you will not be able to break the glass to paste it inside. So if the barcode matches on the front, inside the glass, if you try to scratch it, you can't remove it. It's inside the glass. So if that barcode matches the barcode at the back, then you can now go to the internet and search for that barcode and now be sure that it's the manufacturer that is indicating that actually owns that barcode. Now, but most of them, like Jinko, they have app. So if you are a dealer, if you get in touch with Jinko, they will actually, you have access to their registered app. So from my phone, I see any Jinko panel from my phone, I bring my app. Once I scan it, it will not just tell me that the panel is coming from Jinko. I will know who brought it into Nigeria. And of course, because I'm registered with Jinko, whenever they're having any product launch and all that, I'm also invited. So you need that app to be able to determine which panel is authentic. So this is where the risk that we need to watch out for. So, and that's a comment I want to make on panels. So let's talk about another issue, which is solar mounting kit. So, you need to mount this panel on the roof. So these are the components that help you to secure the panel on the roof. And on that roof, of course, you are going to have a lot of forces of the wind, different things. Remember, the panels are normally warranted by up to 10 years and they can last up to 20 years. So when you are doing the installation, you need to think about that the connection you are making, the structures you are using are going to last that long. It doesn't make sense that you have a panel that will last 20 years and you use a structure that will get damaged by rust in the next 5 years. So while you are mounting on the roof, think about using aluminum structures where you are going to use steel structures. Make sure it's galvanized steel. So like boat, you can't have aluminum boat make sure that all the bolts on top there are galvanized bolts. Otherwise, 2 or 3 years, the boat will get rust, of course, and so wind can just come and damage the whole system. So we need to watch out for that. So just quickly, let's look at what we are talking about here. So these are the kind of things that connect the panel. You can see there's a clearance between the roof and the panel. That clearance is important so that air, because when the panel is generating energy, it also gets hot. You need some kind of circulation of air under it to cool the panel. Otherwise, the junction box can get burnt. It can even catch fire. If you allow panel, there have been instances where I went to retrofit an installation. I found out that they did not put this profile to raise the panel from the roof. The guy just put the panel on top of the roof, and so I found out that we lost 2 panels due to the junction box got melted. One caught fire, but because of the controls that are present inside that place, of course, the diode tripped, stopped the fire, but we have to change those panels. So you need to watch out for that. Here, let's talk about the risk. If you click the other link, you're going to see other components, but I've already highlighted the important ones. So let's talk about the risk. Of course, if you are going to mount panel, there's a risk associated with climbing. You need to manage that risk properly. When you subcontract to people who are going to climb, make sure there's a written instruction to show that you have provided them all the required safety and ensure that they use it, because any mistake can result to fatality, and that can ground their business. So here, if you look at the safety kits involved, you need to use harness that are properly secured somewhere so that even if the person sleeps, at least the harness will keep the person, secure until help comes. So we need to watch out for that. That's a very big risk. Remember, risk and reward. That's what we're doing in this business. Okay, so now these are the cables, solar cables. I just want to say that solar cables are totally different from battery cables, and are even different from AC cable that you see in the house. They need to be specially manufactured. They have some kind of regulations around it. They need to be able to withstand high voltage, and they need to be able to withstand all the degradation that will be caused by weather. So they usually have double insulation. They will always have double insulation. You can see an example of a solar cable here. You can see there's an insulation, and you can see another coating protecting it from environmental issues. Okay, because of time, we are not going to go into that, but if you're interested, you can just get a data sheet of any solar cable, and you can find out the 2 bodies that are regulating them, and read more about that. Okay, so but what I want to mention here is that solar cables are usually flex, those ones that with tiny, small wires like hair. They are not multi-strand. If you look at AC cables, they're usually multi-strand or solid wire. I also want to highlight is that at times you see solar cable, you open it, and they are looking silvery in color. Please, they are not aluminum, and they must never be. When you see such cable, use a wire cutter to cut it to ensure that there's copper inside, that silvery layer is actually the tin, because they normally use tin to stop the copper from further degradation over time. So we don't use aluminum in this work at all, but as a solar cable, battery cable, or even AC cable. So that's what I want to highlight about cable. Of course, I already talked about this link where you can size your cables. So the next component that we're talking about here are breakers and enclosures. Breakers and enclosures are just what you use to control the current coming from the solar to the charge controller or from the charge controller to the battery. You need some level of control because there could be issues. There could be issues. Somebody can be walking on the roof and they will cut those cables and cause a short circuit and all that. You want to protect your equipment downstream. So you need to put a breaker. In case that happens, the current will shoot beyond the rating of the breaker and the breaker will trip, thereby protecting the system. And another thing I want to highlight here is that when you have your breakers, other components like surge arresters, always watch out for the pole number. You have like 2 pole, you have 2P breakers. That means that pole is a measure. It shows that 2 wires can be connected. That's how I can describe in a layman terms. But why I mention this here in relation to the enclosure size is that you need to remember that the breakers are going to be inside the enclosure and you need to make room. So if you have breakers and the surge arresters that are like total of 6 poles, that is, you have maybe two pole breaker 2, which is 4, and you have a surge arrestor that is also another 2 pole, making it 6 poles, and you are trying to put it inside the enclosure, you need to demand for enclosure that is at least 7 pole or higher, so that the electrician who is going to make this connection will be proper, fit everything properly inside that enclosure. If you order enclosure that is less, you are going to find it difficult installing those breakers in the enclosure. Of course, I want to highlight how you size a breaker. Is very simple. If you want to protect a current of 80 amps, you just multiply it by 1.25. It will give you 100 amps. So you are going to buy a 100 amps breaker. So if you want to protect a current of 50 amps, you are going to use a 63 amps breaker because 63 is 1.25 times 50 amps. So that is how you come to how you size breakers. It's very straightforward. So I brought out breakers different because of this issue. So the rest of the components, I'm going to talk about them in the next slide. So here there are other components that you use in controlling the solar. The first I need to mention, even though it's not part of the solar system, but it's very important for me to mention it here, is thunder arrestor. Thunder arrestor. Solar, both solar frame and all that, they are aluminum. Of course, they have wire connected to the ground. And if the house you are installing the solar is not protected by any arrestor, you are running a very big risk of damaging the components. So you need to make sure that you protect the house with thunder arrestor. This is an indirect thunder arrestor. It is very smart and all that. It can give you a lot of coverage. There are other forms of arrestor. I just want to highlight that. You also, let's talk about the next component. The next component is going to be a bus bar. So when they call bus bar, Anita, do we still have time?
We don't really have time because we've spent almost 40 minutes so far. So if it's supposed to be an hour, we have less than 15 minutes because I need to ask questions as well. So
Okay,
if we could,
so let me rush you. Of course, if you go through the link, you are going to see other components. Let me just mention them without really opening them. This is a bus bar. The role is just to collect all the current either coming from the battery, because at times you have like 3 or 4 charge controllers connected to the batteries. You need to use a bus bar. Otherwise, you are not going to make a perfect contact for the transfer of energy, and the whole installation will be messy. So at times you need a bus bar to collect those currents. So let me also highlight that you are going to have like a switch from the battery. They call it battery switches. The importance of that is that if you make a connection, usually if you see some of those installations, find out they don't put battery switch. What happens is that the inverter has a capacitor inside. So when it's discharged or it's off for a long time, it will not have any energy inside it. So when you put it connected to the battery, the first thing that will happen, there will be a rush of current into this capacitor. So at times you want to connect the inverter to the battery, you will hear a very loud sound. Boom. The reason is because there's no switch. So the current will surge and cause that noise, and it can damage the inverter. So it's always important that you put a battery switch to make sure that the capacitors are gradually energized. So we have other things like battery monitors. Importance of battery monitor is that so you can get your warranty. They've given you a warranty on the battery. Battery monitor will, apart from recording everything that is happening, will help you to get that warranty. There are other reasons, but the main reason is that you need to prove that you have not done anything to this battery. That's why you have battery monitors. You also have gateways. Gateway help you connect to the system to internet. Like most of my system, I can support them from here because they are all connected. I can see them from here. If there's any error message, it will get to my email. I will see that and I will respond to that. So there are also voltage protecting devices. And for small installation, you use what they call the current limiter. If you go to the market, you see that has solar installation and they have sold power to the shops. They usually will pass them through current limiters so that if a particular wattage is allocated to you, try to use any heavy load, it will knock you off for some second and return you back. If that load is still there, it will continue to knock you off. You will not be able to use these systems. They are called current limiters. You use them to protect the system from undue use. Now, we have charge controllers. Charge controllers, they are the ones that will control the charge from the panel. Make no mistake, if you remove charge controller, the panel will still be able to charge the battery. But when the battery is full, solar panel will not know that it's supposed to stop, so it will end up blowing up the battery. So charge controller is actually stopping it from doing that. And also at night, the voltage in the solar panel goes below the battery voltage. So if you don't have a charge controller, energy will flow from battery back to the panel, and that is undesirable. So that's the role of a charge controller. I only need to mention here that if you want to enjoy this business, don't ever do any solar connection to a battery nominal voltage less than 48. Because for most charge controllers, apart from Vitron charge controllers, the lower the battery voltage, if a charge controller can handle 4,000 watts of panel, if you drop the battery voltage from 48 to 24, you will drop the panel that you connected from 4,000 to 2,000. So that means you need to buy more charge controllers to be able to install the same amount of solar panels. So that's a waste of money. So if you want to be profitable in this business, don't do any solar connection for battery voltage less than 48 volts. If it's already installed, of course, there's nothing you can do. You can do that, but you need to now go for a Vitron charge controller. They're very expensive, but at least they will help you deal with that issue. Of course, I mentioned the VOC and the ICC when I was talking about this. So you make sure that the VOC of the panel connected will not exceed the rating of the panel. Like this charge controller has 150 volts, 35 amps. So the VOC, the total sum of the volts coming down must not exceed 150 volts. Otherwise, it will damage it. It will void the warranty of the charge controller. The same thing with short circuit current. So let me rush the important items are right. So let me just rush them. So I just want to highlight that apart from the charge controller, we have another type of solar things that can charge the battery. They call PV inverters. So the difference between charge controller and PV inverter is that charge controller convert energy from direct currents. By the way, I supposed to have mentioned that all this current that we are dealing with here is direct current. Direct current means it flows in one direction, not two directions. So it's either going this direction or that direction or zero, as opposed to alternating current, which is coming from the grid. So we have charge controllers will convert DC to DC, but PV inverters will convert DC straight to AC. So if you have a PV inverter, it gives you energy that you can use to power your load straight away without going to the battery. If there's time, we'll talk about it. But what I want to tell you that if you have a PV inverter in your system, you need to make sure that you follow the AC coupling rule, because they are bringing in energy, AC energy, which are difficult to control. So you must make sure that the inverter that they are going to connect to has, you must check the manufacturer's document to find the coupling rule so that you adhere to that, otherwise you void the warranty. And that thing again, that you need to put a lot of batteries when you are using PV inverter, so that if the load are suddenly shut down, there could be a place the inverter can push the energy. Otherwise, they are going to blow the system. Of course, there are other controls that you can use to control PV inverter, like grid meters and all that. Now we have battery inverters. Battery inverters are different from PV inverter. PV inverters, they take DC source from panel and convert it to AC source, NEPA grid voltage. While battery inverters take DC source from the battery and convert to the grid voltage equivalent. So most of the inverters you see are battery inverters. They are very common. So if you have seen any inverter, you have seen a battery inverter. You probably have not seen a PV inverter, but because they are not common. Now, what I want to say about battery inverter is that for our case in Nigeria, where you have a lot of unregulated environment, it pays you to go for inverters that have programmable outputs, so that you can instruct the system to shut down load in any undesirable condition, like overload, low battery, and all that. So inverters that have programmable outputs are very, very good in dealing with that issue. You also should make sure that the inverter transfer switch is adequate, because this transfer switch determines how much energy that can flow through that inverter. This becomes important when you are connecting PV inverter. Very, very important. Then, inverter that has bidirectional energy flow, of course, is better than the one that doesn't, because if it has bidirectional energy flow, it means that when the solar is available, you can reduce what is coming from the grid. While the other ones that are not bidirectional, they can only switch. So they are not efficient in managing energy. Of course, you have some inverters now that have two inputs, that you can wire your generator directly to one input and wire your NEPA to one input. So you don't have to go and have any changeover. The system will be managing itself like that. Of course, they are very, very desirable. Then we'll come to the cheaper type of inverter. I mean, they are not cheaper actually, but they result to reduction in project costs. They are called hybrid inverter. These are inverters that can play the role of the PV inverter and the battery inverter all together. So they're called hybrid inverter. So you can connect panel directly to them, and they can also charge battery. So they're called hybrid inverters. They are very, very common. If you click the link, you see examples there. Yeah, what I want to say, they have advantage because they reduce the project cost. They are not necessarily cheaper than battery inverters or PV inverter, but because when you install them, you don't need to install the charge controller or install a PV inverter. So the whole cost of the project will come down. But while you have that advantage, you have the disadvantage of single point of failure. If anything happens to the solar, maybe one error from the failure, it will just enter error. You are not going to have power. So, and also warranty, because they are not as rugged as the battery inverters or PV inverters. So their warranty is usually 1 to 2 years, but you can have PV inverters or warranty of 10 years. You can have battery inverters or warranty 4 to 5 years. Of course, if you are going to, what I want to mention in all these inverters is that in Nigeria, we run away from wiring 3-phase, not because 3-phase is actually better than single phase, but if you wire 3-phase, you find out that at times one phase in your neighborhood will be down. So of course the system will not connect to NEPA, even though you have power, it will not connect. or what they call phase rotation. The NEPA people will come and fix the lights, and they will now change the phases, interchange them. So it will now have what they call phase rotation issue. Of course, if you don't deal with it, you can also not connect. So that's what I want to talk about inverters. Then let's go to the batteries. So the batteries are, we already know the batteries, but what I want to highlight here is that there are majorly two types, the lead acid and the lithium batteries. Of course, the lithium will give you the highest return on investment, but it will take the highest initial cost. You are going to pay, some of them have 5 years, 7-year warranty, and some of them can last for 12, 13 years. So, but you are going to pay heavily now. So lead acid batteries are cheaper, but you rarely can last you beyond 2-3 years. So that's what I want to highlight. Of course, this single point of failure should not be here. And sorry, I will update this slide. Okay, so I've already talked about the warranty, while the lithium batteries have higher warranty than the lead acid batteries. This single point of failure and the project cost reduction, I will delete that. They are not part of this slide. Okay, Anita, at this stage, can I take the questions, some of the questions you may have?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Yes, please. Let's go ahead and have some questions. Just very few, because we're already out of time, and just very brief answers. The first question I want to ask, okay, before I do that, thank you so much for this session. That has been a very technical and detailed one, and I'm very certain that anybody who wants to get into the solar panel, solar energy business has a lot of information on their hands when they go through this presentation you've given this morning. First question I want to ask is, so now we've heard everything you've said. Assuming somebody wants to start this business, how do they start? Just a brief answer. How do they go about it? Now they know what they need to know, but how do they start?
Okay. So, okay. You want to answer that question, or should I just deal with this one?
No, just answer this one, then I'll ask another one.
All right. So if they already know what they should know, they've gone through all those documents I've talked about and all that, they want to start the business. It's very simple. You have to market, okay? When you have knowledge, remember I talked about value addition, value creation, and value capture. If you have trained yourself and you're already ready for the business, that means you are ready to capture value. But you have to showcase by creating value. You understand? Try to train people, educate people more on that. There are many ways you can do your business. You can do a YouTube video on what you have learned, talk about it and all that, okay? Of course, you can start by trying to build your own small solar installation at home, but easily, if you don't even want to go through that, as you market and you get whatever, you can engage. Like I said, most of the people I train, they still give me a job. So at times, even when they want to size, like this sizing is going to take a lot of time, and it's very tasking. That is why I don't want to also start talking about it now. So at times, they will just ask me, please, there's somebody who wants to power a duplex. Can you help me size and give a quote? I will do that. I will give a quote. If they want me to do the job, of course, I do the job and we share my own fee from the job. So that person can start benefiting from the business that way without really opening any shop and doing anything. But the person needs to be able to calculate what you are seeing in your face now. Because the person, what will usually happen is that people will come up with one theoretical, I want to run 4 ACs and all that and all that. You need to quickly do these calculations to tell the person, I don't think you have enough roof space to run those ACs. If the energy is coming from the you don't have enough roof space to run the ACs, or you will not be able to pay for it. You understand? But if the person knows, like, have had the background, you can sell. There are a lot of people that are importing. You can partner with them. You can sell. You can join forum. There are forum where we belong, where you have solar people installing. At times you hear somebody in forum say, I have a job in Abuja, who will install? I have, all those things. We do get those kind of requests. So that's how you get into
Okay.
the business.
Okay. Okay. Okay, for want of time, I'm just going to ask if
Yeah.
persons need to reach out to you, say for further information, where can we find you on social media? What's your name? How can we get across to you?
Okay. Yeah. If you look at the very first slide, I have put my LinkedIn page there. So if you go there on LinkedIn, you just connect with me. If you connect with me, you should be able to chat. And of course, I can give you my number if I like. Understand? So I put my LinkedIn in the first page. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So you
Did you
can be
get my
reached
answer?
on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Yeah, I did. I did. I did. I said so you can
So
be reached on LinkedIn, right?
yes, I can be reached on
Okay.
LinkedIn.
Okay. Thank
I
you so
have a
much,
WhatsApp, but
Mr.
after
Okay.
reaching me on LinkedIn before I can give somebody
Within
the
the
WhatsApp number. Yeah.
yes, that's gotten. That's understood. Thank you so
Yes.
much. So we'll call it a wrap for today. And everyone who wants to further this conversation will need to watch this section again, and then they can reach out to you as you have stated. Thank you so much for being on the session with us this morning. It was
Yeah. And
really
Enter,
nice to have you.
yeah, Anita, can
I
I
didn't get
just say
that. Please.
something before we close? So can I say something
Oh, okay.
before we close?
Yeah,
So
surely. Just
what
proceed.
is
Yeah.
before you So what is before you is what the person will achieve. If the person has gone through all those steps I pointed out, the person should be able to arrive at this spreadsheet that is in front of you, where you will see the load that the client wants to power. And from that load, you're able to determine how many panels and how many batteries that are required. If you look at the lower right, you see the number of panels and the number of batteries required for this installation. Okay? Hello?
Yeah, sure.
So
That was
when
gotten.
you
Thank you.
so if you find out the value of that panel and you multiply it by 4, it's going to give you a rough estimate of how much it will cost. If you are using the European inverters, there are a lot of them. If you are using the Chinese equivalent, you multiply by 3. It gives you the cost of that project, the whole project. And if you multiply by 2.5, it will give you the cost you are going to spend using hybrid inverters. So this is what I want to highlight, and that's the importance of this spreadsheet here.
Okay. Thank you so much,
Yes.
Mr. Keke.
So
Thank you.
and I now mentioned that I've already mentioned that there are growth opportunities. I mean, you learn more, you deal with, as you solve problems for people, you will get others. And that is what I have for sale.
All right. Thank you for the session. So we'll
Yes.
call it a wrap here. Thank you for being
No.
with us this morning.
Thank you so much.